We are live. It's the top of the hour. It's May 9th, and this is School News Roundup from rockstaracademics.com. Good morning, you guys. So guys, we're going over to the Zoom studio at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock here in just a minute, but this is what we're going to be talking about today. Are gap years a good choice for you and your family? And spoiler alert, the answer is it totally depends. It depends on all kinds of things. Also, we're going to be talking about online education, what it really means, guys, which is not at all what we probably are experiencing. And I've got some really great survey numbers from all those surveys I was mentioning before, surveys about how many parents and students are unhappy with what they're getting right now that's being called online education. So that's college students and high school students, right, Gene?
Yep.
Yeah, both, but everybody's unhappy. I mean, everybody's unhappy about everything right now in some way, but we're also very grateful to be wherever we are. So let's review these news topics that we're going to talk about today.
I think that we'll spend a long time talking about gap year. As we discovered, Google is really being hammered on gap year searches.
16,000 searches a minute or something. I don't remember. I made that number completely up, but the point is searches for gap year have gone skyrocket through the roof in some way.
Well, we got to figure that with this pandemic underway, if I had children about to enter college, I'd be reluctant to send my kid further away than I'm willing to drive to bring them home.
I'm telling you, the headline that's gotten the best response on Facebook was the headline 2 weeks ago that I put up, which was our Zoom classes worth $50,000 a year. I've got the coolest slide today, Gene. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see that one.
Oh, you haven't seen the slides yet? Maybe I should show my co-host the slides. Yeah, so there have been tons of studies that have been done of students and parents over the last 6 weeks. All kinds of folks, different Gallup's done polls, Strata Education's done polls. Everybody's doing a poll. We got 5 minutes, you guys. Everybody's doing polls of students and parents, and all the polls saying the same thing. Students are changing their mind, something like 10. Well, I can't even give you numbers because all the surveys are different, but huge numbers of people changing their minds and considering taking a year off.
Well, that's going to happen. And we're had to really driven home how many smaller colleges are financially less than secure.
State budget cuts, big time, right?
The state of California, in today's newspaper, short 54 billion with a B.
I can't make a B. Is that, I don't know, because the camera's backward. Billion with a B, short $54 billion. And that's after, what did I read?
That's the whole state.
That's the whole state of California, $54 billion short on education funds, which affects both K through 12 and both of the state higher education systems.
Well, the state university system was told to expect $300 million reduction.
Man. And here in Nevada, similar. 4% budget cuts this year with a projected for up 6 or 11 next year. So, and ironically, a big state institution might be your safest choice in terms of finances only, because even though they're having these big budget cuts, they have sort of the financial backing of the state, which is dependent on the financial security of the state versus these small liberal arts colleges. And I used to teach at a small liberal arts college. One of the, some of the best years of my life has been in front of the classroom, but a small liberal arts college is tuition dependent. Now that's, Harvard is not a small liberal arts college, y'all, but we've got, we've got all kinds of small liberal arts colleges. They're tuition dependent, and students are changing their mind, or they're saying, we're not sure what we're going to do. And,
and what are they going to do? We don't know. Good morning. Welcome to Q&A Saturday, another Rockstar webinar. I'm Gene Benson. Joining us, perhaps via the internet, will be Justin. With more than 10 years of experience in higher education, Erica Gillette visited hundreds of college campuses and has been advising students since 2004. In 2017, Erica founded Rockstar Academics to give students and families a saner approach to choosing a college. Today, she's on a mission to change the way American families approach the college decisions and inspire them to dream big about their future. At Rockstar Academics, students apply to college with the end in mind by
Yeah.
deciding what they want first. As a result, they don't just get into college, they get into their own vision of their future.
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you, that's some good writing there, because when I hear it, I get all pumped up and motivated about what we're doing. So we've done something right there. That is what we do. And I think it's more important than ever right now. I feel like I've said that a couple times this week. It's more important than ever. But you know, it's true. Actually, I think the thing I want to emphasize most is today, so I might come back to this over and over again, is that education's hard.
Well, one of my questions for you today that you're walking around is, what is the value of a degree?
Yeah. You know, I was in the shower this morning and I'm thinking, I haven't taken a minute to spend 5 minutes on this topic in any of these broadcasts. We've been broadcasting live every Saturday morning now. This is our 7th or 8th week in a row. I'm not sure. And I think maybe today is the time to sit down and talk about my crazy hair. This thing that really is important to me, Jean, which is that, you know, changing the course of your life, bettering yourself, you know, making your options different for the future is hard. It's hard work. It requires real commitment, intense motivation, hard work, sacrifice, all these things. It always has. That is not different now than it always was.
And it's never been cheap.
And it's never been cheap. And so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit today, that this is a much harder thing to do than it was last year, but it's a degree of difference, because making a commitment, making a bunch of sacrifices, making a decision, I want to change what my options are in life. You know, I've worked with students for 15 years, right? I've worked with at-risk students. I've worked with students at risk of dropping out. I've worked with extremely talented students. I've worked with, you know, profoundly gifted students, and it's always the same. You know, and it's not this way for the same reason with every student, Jean, because every student's got a different background, right? So why this is true is different for every student. But for every student, in the end, the biggest thing that makes a difference is how much they want it and how much they're willing to go after it. So a person really close to me once looked at me in the eye and said, like, do you really want to be great? Like, are you willing to do what it takes to be great? And it made me so mad, because I thought, you know, you can, and then he also said right after that, he said, you can want to be great and you can try to be great, and sometimes it doesn't happen for you. And that's true, but it's still true nonetheless that the thing that matters most is how hard you're willing to work for it. So this isn't me being moralistic, because God knows there are a million things that can derail our plans, but I do think that core commitment of I'm going to do what it takes is it's the thing that we have to find, and we have to find it now more than ever, because there are going to be all these new obstacles in our way that weren't there before. And so getting connected with that core motivation is an advantage that we have to tap into now, that we might have been able to get away with not tapping in the past. Does it make sense?
Well, with Rockstar's philosophy of finding out what's important to the student,
Yeah.
what's the student want, then that core fire will start. But if they're there for general or ed because I don't know what I want to do with my life, they'll wander aimlessly.
They wonder. Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's why in the shower this morning, I was wanting to talk about this, is that, yeah, finding out why you're doing it, what you're after, setting a goal that says, I'm doing this because I want to be an architect, or I want to be an engineer, or I want to be, you know, a New York Times journalist. And then having that be the thing that keeps you moving forward when the obstacles come along it's easier to understand why the classes are worth it, why the tuition is worth it, why changing your plans might be worth it if you have this target that you're aiming at, constantly checking, am I on target? Am I on target? Do I need to move that target? Instead of, well, we'll just keep moving forward and maybe it'll become clear someday, because it doesn't become clear if you don't do the work.
Your young
Bad news.
client who desires to be an automotive engineer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a young person that has a goal.
Oh man, you guys, I have this new client and he's so motivated to do something really cool with his life. And you can see it, right? You can see it in all the things he's interested in, all the things that he's going after and doing research about. You're totally right.
The amount of work you have to do to get a 4-year degree has always been substantial.
Oh my gosh. Totally.
But if you have something you want, then do you care?
Do you care if it's hard? Yeah, I think you care if it's hard. Yeah, but it's easier to stay on track. And so we're going to talk today about gap years a lot. We're going to talk about online classes and education a lot. And I think this message is relevant for both of those things, which is if you are going after something that matters to you, you've got this target on the wall, you are headed after it, right? It's way easier to do that worth it equation that one of my coaches refers to all the time. Is it worth it or not? Is it worth it or not? If it's not worth it, I'm not doing it. If it's worth it, it's worth it. And so if you've got the target on the wall, it's easier to answer those hard questions. When the situation changes, you've got something you can check in with, right, Jean? Mm-hmm. So, well, maybe $50,000 a year is pretty steep for Zoom classes. And I've got some really cool survey results, slides to show you the survey results from the week about parents and students being unhappy with what they're getting as online classes. And like, I think we're all unhappy with what we're getting right now out of a lot of things, but if finishing the semester or if starting the semester in the fall is the thing you need to do to keep yourself on track for a target, right? This is how it works. Then the thing is, well, finishing the semester is what I got to do. And if I got to do it online, because that's all I got, then I got to do it that way because I need to be ready for the thing that comes after this. So it sucks that I can't go to class live, but if I don't do it, I'm just going to be behind.
And if you're in a competitive career field, well, there's always somebody nipping at your heels who's going to be willing to pass you.
Yeah, well, that's also true, right? And so for each family, I think each student, it's important to weigh, nobody I know, no reasonable person takes the idea, this hair sticking out, driving me nuts. I hate having to look at my face. Like, no reasonable person is seriously discounting the cost of education or saying, that's not a lot of money, you need to go and do it anyway. I don't think anybody's really saying that, but like, if it's the right thing to do, you've got to weigh more than just the dollar amount. You've got to also weigh the year of your life, and you've got to weigh the opportunity cost of getting that year out of the way so you can do the year that's coming after it. And is doing it online a suboptimal product? Yes. But if your choices are a suboptimal semester followed by the rest of your college education that goes back to some semblance of high quality, go, right? Don't take a year off. And then with gap years, which we're also going to talk about, we're going to talk about this at length. I've got a whole bunch of stuff to say about gap years, because gap years, what we're seeing a lot of people talking about taking a gap year is not what a gap year is. So taking a semester off to do something else isn't necessarily a gap year. That's taking a semester off. And it might be the right thing for you. But a real gap year is an amazing opportunity, which is it's as carefully planned as a college degree. It's as carefully planned as as well, yeah, as a lot of things. You're on a plan, you have an experience that you've designed where you're going somewhere and you're interacting with a community and you've got these goals that you're after in the year. That's still possible for some people, and certainly taking gap year that is related to the current world situation where you're going to be contributing and or learning and or experiencing something is different than taking the semester off to wait and see what happens. And I keep using the scare quotes just because I want to make clear we're going to come back to talking about how would you make taking a year off work in your favor versus how would you make it look like a gap year, which is a really positive strategic experience, instead of having it look like I took the year off because I didn't know what I wanted. We don't have that's a wasted year of your life, right? I mean, we get 80 years if we're lucky. So let's not call it a gap year and then have no plan. God, there's so many things that we can do with our time.
So my plan to sit on the couch and eat Cheetos while playing Doom isn't necessarily a great plan.
Cheetos have MSG in them. You shouldn't eat them.
Okay. So this is a place for a commercial that you're going to be doing a seminar, not a free one, that will help people plan and build a useful gap year here in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it seems a little early, but I'm going to go ahead and let's talk about that because I might forget later. So
exactly.
I have, for those of you who are here today, we have a small list of folks who are with us on Zoom, and we've got folks that are joining us by chat only, and some a whole bunch of people listening on replay that have registered to listen on replay. And I promised I was going to talk about this. If I don't do it at the top of the hour, I'm going to forget because we're going to get all involved in the news. So I have designing a 3-hour seminar that I'm going to be offering, and we'll do it before the end of next week. So it'll be before next Saturday. That seems really soon, but yeah, it's going to be a 3-hour. And you know what? Well, let's do it. I know what. Let's do it next Saturday afternoon. So we're going to do it next Saturday afternoon. It sounds all crazy. I have all the details sketched out, but it's going to be a 3-hour workshop, and we're going to do it all in 3 hours, just a really, really abbreviated version of the first piece of my semester long program for high school students. So I have a semester long program for high school students. I've been doing it for 5 years, the same way. We go through all the steps where we help high school students identify their goals and target a college education that's going to help them get to those goals. And then throughout the rest of the semester, which the semester is, so it's not really a semester. We usually start at the beginning of the summer, right? And so it's over the summer and beginning of fall. We help them identify their goals. We help them identify schools that are appropriate targets for them, and then we help them get the applications done. Okay, but that's not what we're doing next Saturday. We're just going to do the first little bit of it, which is helping students identify their goals and their talents, and figure out a plan for how they can get to those goals. So we're going to, in 3 hours, we're going to be able to do, actually, it's an amazing amount that we can do in 3 hours. It sort of simulates the first meeting, the first seminar, the first session of our semester-long program, where we just start with, who are you? What have you done? What did it mean to you? What does it make you think you'd like to try? And that will help you figure out what makes sense for next year, because right now we're talking about that information being important for an entirely different set of reasons. So I talked a long time and didn't do what I was supposed to do, which was tell you we're gonna do it next Saturday afternoon. It'll be 3 hours long. I'm gonna put the link in the chat here in just a few minutes, where you can email me to let me know you're interested in registering for that class. And it's gonna be $25 for a family. So I really encourage parents and students to show up together for it. I normally do it just for students. It's the first session of our program, and I do it with students one-on-one. We're going to do this as a workshop. It's going to be 3 hours long, and because of all the stuff that's happening in the world, I'm encouraging family to show up together for the 3-hour workshop to talk about goals for the fall. So $25 next Saturday, 3-hour workshop on making a plan for the fall 2020. And in a second, we'll put a link up so you can email me and get registered, so you and your family can join us. How was that? That was way too long. I'm a
Yeah.
terrible salesperson. That's the problem. Let's talk about the news. Can we talk about the news, please?
Yeah, let's talk about the news. What's your big headline this week?
Oh, well, big headlines. I would say state budget cuts for higher education, but also K-12, right? We had huge announcements from the University System of Georgia, which is a big one, University of Georgia, and also all the other campuses of that system. Huge budget cuts announced. Budget cuts that will be affecting all the campuses. So these budget cuts, most of the states, by the way, so I'm about to go down this laundry list of state budget cuts that have been announced this week, but these are not plans that are final right now. What happens is the federal government decides where they're cutting budgets to states, and then the states have to look at that and look at their projected tax revenue for the upcoming year, and then they propose how they're going to handle the budget cuts that are necessary. So, and then they go out to all the state agencies and say, we need you to cut your budget by X. Please give us a proposal for what you're going to get rid of. So that's where we are right now. They are not approved. The cuts have not been finalized, but we're at the stage where the budget cut requests have been sent to all the agencies, including higher education and K through 12. And all those agencies have had to come up with a plan for how they're going to enact 14% cut, 30% cut, $30 million cut. Here in Nevada, the Nevada system of higher education, their budget cut proposal was 4% across the board. So none of these, well, some of them are actually, I think a couple states have closed, but for the most part, we're looking at the proposals right now. But we've got University of Georgia system proposing huge cuts that include, the proposals include staff layoffs, faculty furloughs. We've got huge budget cuts in California that have been announced, right, Gene?
Today.
Just this morning, right? There were huge ones.
Well, Pasadena they said their reduction is 22%.
That's K-12. We talked about that already this morning, right?
Right.
So Gene's the editor-in-chief at schoolnewssaturday.com. He finds all the news for us. And if you go to schoolnewssaturday.com, you will actually, if you go there today, I'm a hot mess today. If you go to schoolnewssaturday.com right now, there's a link at the top. And it's a link to the brand new schoolnewssaturday.com that is under construction. So you'll actually find, why don't I do this? Let me do a stop share. So what you'll find is a link to the brand new one, and you'll be able to find all the stories that we're talking about here. And so that's why I brought that up. Let's see, here we go. I got mic noise. So Pasadena, tell me about Pasadena. I mean, I read the article too, but. So Pasadena's got 20% budget cuts?
Yep, 22%, just across the board for their entire school district. So I think you can see things like major improvements, capital gains projects put the brakes on them right away. What I'm reading is they're projecting a substantial downturn of income for all the states for the next 2 to 10 years.
As a result of what's going on, right?
Right. And although the COVID virus caused a large loss, there has since then been this shutdown of the economy. Let's see, what's current unemployment? Something more than 24%?
It depends. So unemployment, that early on in some of our first early broadcasts, it was doing some talking about, somebody's waiting to join us. I did some explaining. So there's some explaining on the YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. There's an archive of all of our previous episodes. So on the early episode, we talked a lot about why unemployment being high can trickle down. That's a bad use of the phrase trickle down, but why unemployment can trickle down and have an effect on higher education and all the different ways that could be true, right?
Right.
Because if people are unemployed, they're not paying taxes. If people aren't paying taxes, state budgets get cut. If state budgets get cut,
eventually higher ed gets cut.
Eventually higher ed gets cut. So that's one pathway. Also, if people are unemployed, they can't necessarily afford the level of higher education that they would have. And so students don't enroll, which we're also seeing. And if they don't enroll, tuition-driven institutions are financially impacted. So all these different ways, right? So that's why we talk about budget cuts so much over here, is that the budget cuts, they have a real and immediate impact on higher education, on the cost of it, on the quality of it, on the availability of it, all these things, right?
Absolutely. And there's that chicken versus egg, which arrives first often when budgets are involved.
Yeah, indeed. We got, and I'm pausing because I could just end up talking about that for the whole hour, which nobody enjoys. So, but I've got my screen shared, and so while I do, let me tell you guys what you're looking at, so I can take it off the screen. So this is schoolnewssaturday.com. This is our good work. Jean finds the stories. I read the stories. We have a production manager who helps us get the stories up. What you're looking at is schoolnewssaturday.com. For the last 6 weeks, we've been collecting all the stories about education that we can find here. And if I scroll down, you'll just see lots and lots. These are stories from since March. They're all here, and it goes down forever. And they're sort of organized over here in categories. And even if you were to scroll all the way down, we have some resource collections down here, resources about standardized testing, resources about financial aid for you, resources about the college search. Some of these are my favorite resources that I've been using for 10 years, and some are brand new ones. But what I really want to show you guys is that this site is, what I want to show you is that this site is moving. So the way it looks here is beautiful, but it's really, really hard to manage. And we end up spending so many hours a day. And so what we're doing is we're upgrading the site so that it is a little bit easier to manage. It's not quite as pretty, but we get more up-to-date news out to you quicker this way. And so this week's news is over here on the new site that's still under construction. So most of the headlines we're talking about today are going to be here at schoolnewssaturdays.com. And we are building it as we speak. We were developing the site this morning with my morning coffee. And so I want to go ahead and show you guys this so you know where to find all the resources we're pointing at. Most of the articles that we're talking about today have already been posted here. We're going to be talking, I know the print is really small here, but we're going to be talking quite a bit about the surveys that have been done of students and parents and educators over the last 6 weeks. And the link for those is this article right here. So you'll be able to find that right here under college admission news later. So now I talk pretty fast, but it's okay. There'll be a recording. So now we're back to.
You just glanced a stone off the pond over there, and it's probably good for the parents, the students to read here. SAT, those standardized tests, are they important? Are they going to be held? That probably needs to be repeated weekly until we get past this.
Yeah, let me know in the chat, guys, because we've got a bunch of new people here today. We've been at this long enough that we have some regulars that show up almost every week. And I see a bunch of brand new faces in the list over there. So let us know where you are, if you're a senior, if your student's a senior, or if your student's a junior. What are the big questions that you guys are bringing to the table today so I can answer them, right? Because I have a queue of topics here. But Jean brings up a good point, which is SATs and ACTs. They were canceled this month. Some of the tests that were supposed to be happening next month are being canceled. So, we've seen a bunch of schools go test optional, and we've talked a lot in here about what test optional means. The short version is I am encouraging everyone who has the ability to do so to continue to prepare for that test and take the test in the whatever format it's delivered. So especially this year, and for any year where we're seeing test optional happen, doing poorly on the test really can't hurt you, right, Jean?
Well, we're just getting a live question in from a parent who's worried about, the daughter is worried about that a good SAT score will not be used for admission decisions.
That's a good question. Okay, so I'm reading the chat. So I couldn't do this without my team, and so Jean's reading the chat because I can't see the chat when I'm looking at the other stuff. So, hi, is it Matt? I'm curious if it's Matt or if I'm saying your name wrong. But Matt asked this. So my daughter is concerned that she will not have the boost of a good SAT score as she feels it won't be used. Okay. Gene, you were right. We do need to talk about this every week. Okay.
Yes.
So test optional doesn't mean test invisible. So basically what this means is a great score can only help you, and a bad score wouldn't hurt you. And that's actually what the school districts mean when they're saying hold harmless. So we see all the school district officials talking about how grading has turned out and how they've made decisions about how school districts are going to grade. And basically test optional is really similar to that. So so in the school districts, what they're saying is whatever grade you had, you can only get that grade or better. So they will not lower a student's grade point average or their grade in any particular class, but the students have the opportunity to improve their grade. So if you do the work, and this is very general, it depends on every school district, but the point is you can only do better, you can't do worse. So test optional, it works differently, but it kind of has the same effect. If you go take the test, or you don't take the test. You don't take the test, or you take the test and you don't do well because you had to take it in the living room with your little brother and the dog and your parents and everything, and you got distracted. And you don't do well, it won't hurt you very much. In fact, if the school is test optional, it won't hurt you at all. Well, that's what they're saying. But they are still encouraging you, I am still encouraging you to send those scores if they're good scores. If you have good scores, you better believe that school is going to see those scores, and you better believe they're going to be thrilled to know that you did well. And being an attractive candidate because you have a higher score, it really is a buyer's market, as we've talked about over and over again on this recording, right? Hi, Paula, welcome. It's good to see you again. So we're talking a little bit about SAT scores, test optional scores, and whether or not students will be penalized or students will lose the opportunity to benefit from a good score.
And isn't a high SAT score the study that went into the gaining of knowledge to be able to do that well? Isn't that just another possible college admissions essay topic?
Oh God, yes, right. And so we haven't done an entire episode yet about the college essay, but I think that one's coming too. And we won't talk about that in the 3-day workshop that I've mentioned this morning either. We'll have to do a different one for that. But the short version of your question, Matt, is your daughter does not need to worry about losing the boost. Your daughter will definitely get the boost of that high score. So if you've got a high score, or another way to say it is if you think you have the ability to achieve a high score, go do it, girl, because you'll be able to put it on the application. You better believe the admissions officers are going to see that high score, and it's going to make you very attractive. So what does that mean, very attractive? And what does that mean, buyer's market? Well, what it means is, look, guys, let me show you the slide. I mean, colleges are worried sick about whether or not they're going to be able to fill their campus, if they can open campus. But when I say fill their campus, it means they're worried about whether or not they're going to have enough students to keep the doors open, budget-wise, right? And so they're looking for students who are highly qualified, students who are serious about coming to college. This is a joke, so take it in the best possible way, right? But in some ways, I think a lot of colleges are looking at, look, if you're breathing and you can write a check of some sort, we want you. So that's bad. In some ways, right? It's bad that colleges are desperate. And they know that, right? A college wants the best possible class. They want a class that is cohesive, a class of students that are going to stick together and do well. So Matt, if your daughter has a great score, it means that college is going to be really motivated to have her say yes and come. It means that she might be recruited more heavily. It might mean that she gets an extra financial aid offer. So those good scores, those good grades, if you have the ability to achieve them in this environment, go after it, because it makes a huge difference, I think, even in test optional. And that's not just my opinion. A lot of us are talking about that in the industry. Go get the good score if you can. It does matter.
Yeah, it's not a Matt, it's a Maya, but that's okay.
Maya or Mia. I have a niece named Mia, so we'll see. Okay.
So let us.
I talk so fast.
That was good.
Let's see, we got headlines.
getting into school, last night you were reading me a news article about a really good deal at a college.
Oh.
They should hear this.
Well, that's what we were just talking about. Okay, so without talking about the doomsday stuff and how students are desperate, we've got a question from Trish. Trish, I'll come right to you, okay? So without just being doomsday and, oh my God, the sky is falling and it's the end of the world and all of that, although it does kind of feel that way in higher education at the moment. What is the upside of this for you? So the upside of this for you is especially if you're a desirable student, meaning you have high scores and you're motivated and you've picked out that goal and you can demonstrate that you are goal oriented to an admissions office. That makes you a desirable student. That's a pretty good short description of a desirable student. But if you're a desirable student, I just made that face because I was like, if you're breathing and you're paying tuition, you're a desirable student, but that's not true. And I only mean it in a good way, sort of to make everybody laugh. If you're a desirable student, what does it mean? What's the upshot, right? The upshot is there are some really cool opportunities out there right now because students or colleges are trying to make it really attractive to go ahead and commit. So I have a slide. Gosh, I might not get to all these slides, which would be sad. I don't like death by PowerPoint, but the slides have data on them, which is cool. Southern New Hampshire University was in the news last week or 2 weeks ago because they announced this great program, and I've got a list of great programs. This is just the first example. So Southern New Hampshire University, which is a smaller school in obviously New Hampshire, that does some really innovative things, announced I think it was April 22nd, they made this announcement. So it's been a couple weeks ago, but they announced they were going to give every freshman who enrolls for the fall of 2020, every freshman, a 100% scholarship to come and enroll for the fall. 100% scholarship for the year, only for the year. And here's what they're doing. They're going to have all the freshmen on campus. So you're going to get to have that freshman experience. You're going to get to join the clubs. You're going to get to have the extracurricular activities. You're going to get the freshman experience, and all in person. You know, they're going to practice social distancing. Now look, we'll talk about how you got to do your homework to see what a school means by that. But they're going to do all the on-campus experience of freshman year, and then they're going to deliver all the classes online. So students will be on campus, but they'll be taking classes online. So they're taking the class maybe in their dorm room or in the library. It's online learning, and the good kind of online learning, which we just can't talk about everything every week, right? But the difference between kind of crummy remote emergency response learning and good online digital education is huge. So they're going to deliver all the classes. They're going to deliver all the classes online, but they're going to have students on campus so that they can figure out how to deliver some of that in-person experience that really over and over and over again, even in the news surveys of March and April of this year, over and over again, students are saying, look, this is what matters to us about college. Online classes from our couch at home isn't good enough. We need intellectual debate. We need extracurricular activities. We need the freshman, the football game. We need all these on-campus experiences. That's what makes it college. Yeah, that is what makes it college, right? So how do we figure out how to get that happening for a student and still keep them safe? So Southern New Hampshire University has announced that they are giving 100% scholarships to students for freshman year if they come next year and help them figure this out. Now that's a cool opportunity, right? So to take advantage of an opportunity like that, or Beloit College has announced some great hybrid solutions. To take advantage of an opportunity like that, to be part of reimagining higher education, reimagining what college looks like, I'll tell you, that is cool. And that'd be one of the things, 2 episodes ago, we talked about how do you decide if a college is going to do a good job for you in the fall and therefore make it worth it to go. How do you know? What do you look at? And we looked at all these different numbers that I recommend. If this is your first time, make sure that you go look at our replay page where I've got some resources that you can download, other stuff. But the resources you can download include the list of questions you should ask. But the big question you should ask is, how is this campus going to handle all this all this change? Do they have a good plan for doing online? Do they have a good plan for evacuating students? Do they have a track record of being financially stable so that a refund is possible if necessary and they're going to weather the crisis well? But some schools are doing some cool stuff. Do you remember how many weeks ago was it that we talked about the different scenarios for education? I've got the slide here.
Yeah, you should have a slide here on what are the facts that a parent could be looking at about, how do I
Here's our
decide?
slide.
Here you are.
Go ahead, finish your sentence. What are the factors that a parent can use to decide?
How do they decide what's their best ability to guess? Will this school be here 4 years from now while my student matriculates?
Oh, those slides. I do also. So I have a great slide about that. Let's see if I can find it. But these are the scenarios we talked about. And the day we did this discussion, one of the things I said was, I think the thing you should expect is that the campuses are going to do some variety and then do some of all of this. So you're going to see hybrid responses. You're going to see campuses trying to figure out their own best way to handle this, which will include some students on campus, some students dialing in online, or all students dialing in online, or modular classes where they have one group of students on campus this week, a different student next week, or block scheduling, which would mean that they're doing one class at a time in a really, really compressed format so that they can pivot if necessary and things change. And that's actually what we're seeing, right? So we've seen Southern New Hampshire has got this great announcement about 100% scholarships. We got Beloit College doing some neat stuff. As far as finances go, we're seeing some campuses do better than others. Davidson College was pretty generous in that they announced that students would have they could defer payment on the current year and still enroll for the next year. We've also seen many schools giving partial refunds or partial tuition credits. A few campuses are giving 100% refunds, but not that many. And where's my slide with my questions to ask? See if I can.
But yeah, I believe that's what we've seen for the last 3 weeks. That every campus we've looked at has been, we're going to have a plan. Some of them actually can then relate to you what the plan is.
Oh,
A great number of them go, we promise there'll be a plan.
We promise there'll be a plan, really, we promise.
Yeah, but regardless, all of them that I've heard have essentially said, yep, we want everybody to come back. We want all the students to have an experience. But if pandemic rules prevent that, we're going to have some sort of online hybrid process that will get our students the education they need and as much of the experience as we can safely provide.
Yeah, that is okay. So that's exactly what it is, right? At the end of April, we saw a tremendous number of campuses all of a sudden come out and say, we're going to be open in the fall. We promise we're going to be open in the fall, relax. And that's because they needed students to make deposits by May 1st.
Yep.
And what I said here that Saturday morning was, don't believe it. They're saying that because they're trying to encourage you to make a deposit. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to be open, right? But they're not as confident as they sounded, right? And so if you dig, and that's why I put this slide up a couple weeks ago, was if you dig, what you really see is that they intend to be open in the fall and that they are making plans for being open in the fall, but that they're also making plans not to be, right? And so business as usual is not going to happen, right? But one of these hybrid options is. And so the biggest question, even over cost and even over financial stability, because Trish has a question about that we'll come back to. The biggest question is still the one we would have always been asking, right? Which is, do you know what kind of experience is going to be optimal for you as a student? Do you know? And if you don't know, please sign up for our 3-hour workshop next Saturday so we can figure that out. Do you know what's optimal for you? And do you know where you can get it? And so in order to know whether a campus can deliver that to you, that campus needs to be able to be forthcoming about what they're planning to do. So I'm going to skip forward. I mean, we're at 10:40 already, and I really want to talk to you guys about some of the data that we found this week. Let's look at this guy. So Trish's question is, how should we know which colleges might be in trouble of closing when we start looking at applying this summer? So Trish, that means your student's a junior right now and is going to be going into his senior year in the fall, which means, I mean, that's when I start working with families and students one-on-one, and in my group coaching is at the end of junior year. So right now, and we're starting the process. So that workshop we'll do next week is the very, very first step in that process. And we start with, what are you hoping to get out of college? What are your goals? What kind of place do you need to go to? And then finding the schools that work, right? And so in this year, more than any other year in the past, it's also important to look at the financial health of the school. Financial health is one of the three variables. Quality of education is, I think, the most important variable, and I have a list of ways you can measure that, numbers you can do research on. And then not just cost and quality, but also how they're planning to respond to this particular environment. So the slide I've got up here is relevant to your question. It's relevant in the sense that I want you guys to see what's going on here. So this is a slide that was released out of a survey last month. You can see on the slide on the left-hand side, I've got all this data to share. But this is a survey of college administrators and what's going on those campuses right now as they scramble to come up with plans so that they can tell students what they're doing so that students can make good decisions, right? And so what you're seeing here, so you know, the tiny little blue line represents campuses that have already made up their mind. So please notice how small all those little blue, they don't know yet. Of course they don't know. Right. And so then the yellow line is how many campuses are considering this option. And the red line is how many campuses are not going to consider this option. So the options across the left-hand side are, number one, how many campuses are considering decreasing the number of on-campus classes next year. So the small number, this blue, you know, very small number of campuses have already decided to decrease their on-campus classes. You know, 57% of campuses are considering this. A small number of campuses are saying that they will not consider decreasing on-campus classes. And I mean, I just don't believe that number. I think that on-campus classes are going to be canceled or moved online. So, so I'm not sure what to say, right? And well, I am sure what to say. I'm sure about what to say. What I say is I don't believe it. So instead, so if you look at the second option, this is the number of campuses that are considering decreasing the total number of classes they offer in the fall. 69% are not considering decreasing the number of classes they offer in the fall. Now, this is a little bit of a lesson in critical thinking, guys. Do you believe that campuses will offer the same number of classes this year that they offered last year if they have a predicted 20% enrollment decline? That's not possible. They're going to have to cancel classes. So use your critical thinking here. And so if you look at, they're considering it, you want to look at the college and decide if you think they're being honest about what they're saying. Now, I'm not saying that they're lying. I'm just saying if they're saying stuff that doesn't seem possible, you should be looking at it with a fair degree of skepticism. And what the whole point of 2 or 3 episodes ago, we just talked about this one thing. How do you evaluate the campus? How do you evaluate the school and whether or not you can be comfortable that they are going to deliver what you need? Okay, so rather than us re-recording that episode, I'll send you, Trish, I'll send you specifically that link so you can go listen to it. But how do you decide whether you have faith in that particular school to do a good job? And so based on the slide I'm showing you, we see 53%, this one at the bottom, 53% of schools are considering remaining completely online. 53% are admitting that they're considering remaining fully online. 65% of campuses are considering increasing the number of online courses, right? And so I just don't believe these two numbers are really all that accurate. I believe that those numbers of the campuses say they're not considering decreasing the number of courses, they're not considering decreasing the number of on-campus courses, but yet 65% are considering increasing the online courses, which I think is very realistic. So I'm gonna turn my camera off for a second. Just say hi, you guys. So Trish, a short answer to your question is there are a good set of numbers that are collected every year by the National Center for Education Statistics. They're called IPEDS, fancy industry term. And they're very hard to read if you are a layperson, but there's some great sites. Collegedata.com is my favorite. You can find that resource down at the bottom at schoolnewssaturday.com. And you can go to collegedata.com and you can get these numbers about a school. So number one is the on-time graduation rate. So these are numbers that generally gauge the academic health of an institution, whether or not they're good at delivering a good education. Do students graduate on time, which is 5 years these days? Do students return after their freshman year? In other words, are they having good enough experience that they come back? That indicates that the school's doing a decent job, right? And then not always reported, but often reported is also the percentage of graduates who get employed in their desired field after 1 year after graduation. And that number is sometimes called different things and not every institution reports it, but it's a really good one if they report it to tell you how many graduates get jobs within a year. And then in terms of financial health, which was your specific question, this is really a tricky one. And it's not one that, you know, in past years, I advised families to really consider all that closely. Ben, and actually, I think I should have, in retrospect, I think that we should have always looked at this, but higher education hasn't been in this level of crisis until now. We're seeing colleges be in threat of close. We are even seeing colleges that were already in financial trouble are closing. So there have been a handful of campuses announcing that they're closing for good. Most of them have been very specific. Most of them have been very specific about saying that it's not related to coronavirus. It's just related to financial issues that were already existing, and that coronavirus has now exacerbated the situation such that they can't continue. But frankly, I think we're going to see that change, and we are seeing campuses start to come out. Which college was it that came out yesterday saying?
Yeah, yesterday was Wells College.
That's right, Wells College. Wells College is a very small liberal arts college in New York State. And they have been under accreditation review, and they have financial health issues, and they've come out and said, look, if the state of New York doesn't allow us to have on-campus classes in the fall, we are not going to make it as an institution. So this is very real, and it's something that, you know, professionals, we talked about all the time, but we never talked to families about it because the odds of a school really closing were not that realistic on most campuses. You know, in the last 5 years, Sweetbriar College closed. And to me, that was so very sad because Sweetbriar was such a lovely, tiny little liberal arts school. But we've seen schools really struggling to demonstrate the value of a liberal arts education over a more technical, more skills-based degree. And so how do you evaluate the financial health of an institution right now during this crisis? I think it involves looking at a couple of factors. It definitely involves going to look at how the college is talking about it themselves. So Wells College, I think, has been incredibly responsible by being honest and coming out and saying, look, we're in trouble. If we don't get to open in the fall, we're not going to make it. I don't think you're going to see a lot of schools be that forthcoming. I think a school that's that forthcoming, they really are in trouble. A lot of small liberal arts colleges, though, privately behind closed doors are worried about that very same situation. So number one is looking at how the school is talking about it. Are they being open? Are they being open about problems, and or are they being open about the current situation. So really early on, I was on a conference call. I listened to a conference call where one of the executives from Northeastern, which is, a great, well-established school in the Northeast. Northeastern is in the Northeast.
Amazing.
God. Need to fill all the airspace. Okay. So Northeastern was talking early on about how they were really well prepared. So their financial situation was in order. And, he was being honest. He's like, this is a problem for everybody. Everybody's endowment is affected and we are affected, but we have a plan. So you'd love to hear a school just being able to be honest that way. So that's number one. How's the school talking about themselves? Number two is the school traditionally endowment driven or tuition driven? So the difference is, and you'll have to dig to find these numbers for the most part, which is one of the reasons why I've been offering, I can put the slide up. I think about it and I'm like, oh, I should put the slide up. So one of the reasons that I offer, I can't find it. I'm offering free conversations with families to talk about their specific decisions is because it's sometimes hard to find these numbers. But whether or not the school is endowment or tuition driven matters because endowments have been cut. Harvard has been complaining that they're in so much trouble because their $1 billion endowment, $10 billion endowment has been slashed in half. My gosh. But that's real, right? If you're used to spending the revenue of $10 billion and now you only have half that much, that's a huge slash, right? Yep. The difference between 10 billion and 5 billion is way bigger than the difference between 10 million and 5 million, right? So if you cut 10 million in half, you've lost $5 million. If you cut 10 billion in half, you've lost $5 billion. And so the changes you have to make are much more drastic at that level. So I make that illustration just to make sure it's obvious that just because the school has a big endowment doesn't mean they're safe. In fact, it might mean they're in even bigger trouble because they've lost more money. So looking at that is important. Looking at a school that is tuition driven and stable would be the best opportunity because it means that if students come, they have the budget to go. If it's a state university you're looking at, like California or Texas or Nevada, state budgets are being cut. But that's the reality everywhere. And so what you want to look at is how has the state announced they're planning to enact those budget cuts? Are they laying off staff? Are they laying off faculty? Are faculty complaining? You can find that out. Are faculty complaining? How are they handling student refund requests? Are they handling it well? Are they refusing to give them? Are they making no comment? So it's a critical thinking exercise, and it's Googling the campus and seeing what comes up. It's also looking at their endowment, looking at their, most schools are nonprofits, which mean they have to make financial filings that are public, and you can look at that stuff. Nobody's suggesting that the average parent is qualified or should spend their time learning how to read all that stuff. But the answer is you got to just go look and see how they're handling it. And that's really frustrating because what it often translates into is we're just going to wait and see. And the main topic of the day was supposed to be don't just wait and see. If you're going to take a gap year, please don't do it because you're just going to wait and see, because the future's still coming. The future's still coming, and if the way your student gets to the life they want is to finish a college degree, they just need to get started, right? They don't need to just wait and see. Then we may need to find a different place for them to get started, but getting started is still the right thing to do next year. Get started if you have a goal set. So we have 5 minutes, and I want to repeat my offer that we started at the beginning of the hour, which was about the 3-hour workshop we're going to do next Saturday afternoon. So we decided Saturday afternoon at the top of the hour. It's a 3-hour workshop. We sketched it all out yesterday afternoon. I've been thinking about it for a couple of weeks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the very first session that I normally do with students. So when I work with students one-on-one comprehensively for the entire application season, we meet every other week. I have a program that I walk students through step by step. So we do all the steps of the application process in a specific order, so it gets done quickly and easily and with the best result. But we can't do all that in 3 hours. What we can do is we can do that first piece where I get to know the student. We figure out what kind of goals the student wants to set. So many times students haven't set goals yet. And it's okay to set goals that you're not certain about. Setting goals, right? Setting goals, go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay to set goals, have time pass, circumstance change, and recognize, hey, that was an old goal, no longer valid.
Right.
I have a new goal. Does my plan fit my new goal?
It's a course correction instead of an,
Yes.
oh my God. So we help students set goals, even if they aren't 100% certain about them, because once you've set a goal, you have a target on the wall that you're going after, right? And then the obstacles, when they come, are just obstacles instead of things that derail you and send you in a different direction. You go around the obstacle and you stay focused on your goal. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about whether or not a gap year or another form of taking the year off will help a student get to their goal. Because if it does, then we can come up with a really good plan for how to make the year really effective for a student. But it depends on the student's goal. It depends on how focused they are and whether or not we can set a goal that is attainable and what would it require. So that's what we're going to do in the 3-hour workshop. It's going to be $25. I'm encouraging parents and students to show up together. So $25 for a family. And we are going to open it to 25 students, or 25 students, 25 families. We'll do it next Saturday afternoon. It's going to be 3 hours. I'm trying to remember to repeat all the important stuff. It'll be great, you guys. I know it sounds like a lot to do in 3 hours. I do this with all my students. It's one of the first conversations we have. So we're going to do it as a 3-hour workshop. We're going to do it on Zoom. We'll all be in a room together. You guys won't be muted like you are now. We'll be having a good conversation, and we're just going to go through the exercises that work that I have done for years and years and years with students and set some goals. And in 3 hours, we'll be able to set some goals and come up with some immediate responses to what are good plans for those goals. So I see Mia. Mia says, so true. My daughter feels like she has to have her major figured out now. Oh gosh. Mia, can I unmute you? Would you like to say hi?
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
Hello.
Hi. Tell me a little bit more.
So I was just having a conversation with my daughter last night, and I'm so excited that I found this group, and thank you all for providing this information. But she's trying to, right now, even just figure out her classes in the fall, and she feels like her counselor is not allowing her to make the decisions of the classes she wants to take because of how it's going to impact her in college. And she feels like whatever classes she chooses now too is going to make a difference for what her major is going to be and what she has to choose when she's going into college. And so just trying to reassure her that, you know, you don't have to have all of these questions figured out now. You're going to figure things out as you go through the process. So I think sessions like this in counseling is going to help her figure that out. And sometimes I think it's helpful to hear it from other than mom or dad.
I'll tell you, that's not the thing I want to respond to. I want to respond to everything else you said. But first, I have to say, it is true that it's helpful to hear it from someone else often. And I feel like your mom and dad has said this a million times, but it's just good to hear it from someone else. But that's part of what it is to be a teenager, you know?
Yeah. True.
So it's true. So she's a junior. She obviously has some good counseling. It sounds like, which she's very fortunate. Many students, it's, I have a brand new client for this coming year, just started with me. So we're about to do that conversation one-on-one. And one of the reasons the family decided to hire me is that when she went to try and get an appointment, Jean, do you remember this? She went to try and get an appointment with her college counselor at the high school, and she was told it would be 6-month wait to have that first. So thank goodness that they found me, and so she doesn't have to wait 6 months for good advice. But your daughter has had at least a couple conversations. It sounds like she's getting pushed around though.
She is. She's not being respected for you know, the choices that she's wanting to make, and she just feels like she's being ignored and her opinion is not being valued. So I do need to seek other other support.
You see me make the angry face because because what it sounds like, I mean, it's really wonderful when you have a young person who is headstrong and is, if she's upset she's not being allowed to make choices, that means she's pretty confident about them, right? Which that in of
Mhm.
itself is a great sign.
Yes.
In fact, you know, a student who's willing to do that, like that's what you need for real conversation, right? Real dialogue. If a student is
Right.
just going to, okay, whatever you say, or I don't want to hear what you have to say, then you can't dialogue.
Right.
So the fact that she's willing to defend her opinion probably also means that she's looking for input.
Yes.
So the counselor is, so she's got classes she wants to take, and the counselor's basically saying that'll mess up your transcript.
Right. It's a math class. She's adamant she doesn't want to take math, and she has her reasons, but
Mm,
well, it's recommended you should take 4 years of math and you can do
yeah.
this, but just not responding to the things that my daughter is trying to point out as well. So,
Well, here's how we handled it. So we won't do this in the 3-hour workshop, you guys, because it'll get us off track so much. What I'll do is I'll talk about this a little bit, and then this is what we do in a private session, right? Which is sometimes a student is receiving good advice, but it's being delivered in a way they can't hear it.
mhm.
So so a lot of times a student can't receive the good advice, and over again, what I've discovered, one of my first projects in my professional career was working with students that were on probation academically and were in trouble. And one of the things I discovered is that those students are in trouble because they don't understand the consequences. They don't understand what's at stake is a better way to say it. Consequences is a really negative word. So they don't understand what's at stake. And another good way to say that is that they don't know why it matters that they do the thing. So, I mean, if I ever got a tattoo, this is what the tattoo would say, like, understand why it matters. And that's what we focus on with students is you have to give students a reason why it matters. They're just like we are, right? If it doesn't matter, it's the worth it equation that my coach talks about. If they don't know why it's worth it, they don't know why it matters, they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it, they're not going to do a good job at it, it's not going to be worth it. So you've got a counselor who's encouraging your daughter to take a math class because it's important to have 4 years of math.
Yes.
Truth is, it is important to have 4 years of math at a lot of schools.
Okay.
So not at every school, but at a lot of schools. And so if your daughter, so here's the rub, okay? I wrote an editorial a couple years ago, and it was about understanding what the real goal is. Shocker. I have this soapbox. And the headline was, an admissions letter is not the goal. So getting into a really great school is not the goal here. It never was. It surely isn't now. Getting into college is not the goal. Getting out of college is the goal.
Right.
And getting out of college with the degree that gets you the life you want is the goal, right? So we have to start with the end in mind, and we have to know what the end is. And so, right, just see the theme, right? That's what we'll do in this 3-hour workshop, where we can't do everything. We can't do much, but we can say, well, this is the goal I'm going to go after right now. And then we can work backwards, right? So what is your daughter thinking about majoring in college?
She's gone from nursing to psychology to education.
Okay, so nursing, psychology, and education, believe it or not, are actually all kind of really related to each other. And so schools are going to have similar kinds of requirements for each of those. So, she's not planning to be an engineer, for example. So a college counselor who was saying to her, look, you need to take physics, that would be kind of crazy, because that's really not related to the goal, the end goal.
Right.
Right. So we would discount that counselor.
But math is in all of those.
Math is, and
Right.
so then we got to go ask the question, why does math matter? And the reason so the whole goal is we've got to help your daughter understand if it really matters and why it really
Right.
matters if it does. Because counselors often give stock advice, and it's good advice, and the stock advice, they figure out what's good advice for everybody, and then that's what the advice that they give. So you need 4 years of math is good advice for everybody. So it's an easy thing to say.
Right.
So if your daughter has these kinds of careers in mind, where's going to be a good place for her to go to school? Does education, nursing, and or psychology require a degree at Cal Poly? Well, no is the answer. But if she's got a specific program in mind, what matters is, does that goal require the math? And what kind of math? And so we got to go look. We really have to go look at your daughter's specific goals, what schools are going to be good choices for her, and whether or not those schools really require math and or what kind of math. So if she needs math to get into the school she wants to go to, then she needs math. Does she need calculus, or can she take a statistics class? Which, God, a statistics class is not as hard as calculus and much more useful, right? So we got to look at that generic advice and then figure out whether it applies and why it would matter.
Yeah, thank you.
And once we make it matter to her, she'll do it.
Yeah.
I say that with such confidence. I've never seen it not happen. Oh, you tell me in order to get the thing I want, I got to do this thing I don't want? Okay, I'm on it. Right? I'm on it. Hey, Erica, help me figure out how I can get it done as easy and quickly as possible. We can do that, right? Maybe you take that darn class online in the summer and you get it done in 3 weeks, but you did it, right?
Yes.
If it matters, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think you're right on target. I think it's a matter of how the message is being delivered, and she doesn't understand the true impact of that decision. So
it sounds like it. And here's my final thought on that. I have never tried to talk a kid into something they didn't want. I never have, because I've watched people try. It doesn't work out very well. Talk a kid into something they are convinced they don't need, it doesn't work out well.
Right.
So if she needs it, our job as parents and counselors and coaches is to make her see why she needs it, make her, give her a reason to want it. And if we can't successfully do that, we have to change course. Nobody's going to be happy if we force her into a class we think she needs and she doesn't want. She won't do well in the class. She won't get anything out of the class. She'll be mad. We lose credibility. A million bad things happen. So our job is either to make it clear to her why it matters so that she wants it. And if we can't do that, then we have to sit down and say, what's your daughter's name?
Madeline.
Madeline. Here's all the evidence why 4 years of math matters to the thing you want. If you still don't want to take the math class, even though you're looking at the reasons why the math class matters, maybe we have to talk about what you really want, right? Like if you don't want it that badly, you don't want it that badly.
Right.
These are tough conversations. They're tough conversations for anybody to have with anybody. Sometimes at the 17th year of parenting, they're particularly difficult conversations for a parent to have. You know what I mean? It can still be the truth, and it cannot land. And sometimes because I'm a new person, or I can say it in a different way, sometimes we can do it. And the opposite is also true. Sometimes because I'm not mom or dad, I'm more willing to let go of something that's not going to work. Because what is that beautiful phrase? If you're holding on so tightly to the thing you're trying to get, your hands are not open for the thing that's actually doable.
It's true.
So we're hanging on to, you got to do this thing, you got to do this thing. We're hanging on to it so tight, nothing's going to happen. And in fact, well, if Madeline refuses to take math, right? She knows something in her gut, maybe. She refuses and she says, I don't want to take math so badly, I'm willing to give up this dream.
Right.
She's got to look in the mirror and say that out loud.
Yes.
If she's willing to look in the mirror and say that out loud, well, there's your answer. If she's not, then she's got her answer. Okay, do I have any? I want to see if anyone else is here. I know Paula's here with us today. Paula, how you doing? We're 10 minutes over, you guys. I think we might be ready to go. So my standard offers are, please go to rockstarstrategysessions.com, where you can book a 1-hour consultation. We can get to know each other better. That's a one-on-one talk. We'll get to talk about your family situation and see what might be best, and if there's some of my programs that might be helpful for you. I have a whole list of that's not a whole list, this is a short list. I have a couple of options for working with me that are available at rockstaracademics.com. That's our home website. So you can go to rockstaracademics.com to see some of the programs that we offer, including one-on-one calls. You can go to rockstarstrategysessions.com to book a 30-minute call. And if you're interested, so here's the offer I'm going to make. We're going to cut tape on this one before I post it on YouTube. If you're interested in the 3-hour workshop we're going to do next week, next Saturday, please email me. Just send me an email straight up. We're very old school here. I'll put a website up at some point, but just email me at TEX at rockstaracademics.com. Email me and let me know you're interested. It's going to be $25 a family. We're going to limit it to 25 families. I'm hoping we get about 10. That would be a really good size group. But email me, let me know you're interested, and we will do it next Saturday right after this. We'll start after our broadcast, so probably around noon Pacific time. Okay. Hi, Manuela says, I'm not going to read this out loud, Manuela. I don't know whether you wanted me to read it out loud, so hang on.
That's fine. Absolutely. Read it out loud. No worries.
Okay, so we got a question from Manuela. Hi, my daughter did well on the ACT test last summer. Good job. She's a junior, so that was her early test. So she's a junior now. She was not feeling well during the test and messed up her science section and just wants to retake the science portion of the test. So she took it last summer in between her sophomore year and her junior year, yes?
No, junior to senior. Sorry, yeah, sophomore to junior. Sorry, yes.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is she did well on the test when she took it before her junior year. Can you share how she did?
Yeah, she got a 35. But
oh my gosh.
I know. She was not feeling well, so she feels like she can do better in the section that, So, I mean, is it even worth it?
Certainly it's worth it. So just a little background, a perfect score on the ACT is a 36, guys.
Right.
I think the national average is a 22. And the scores are on a logarithmic scale. So the difference between a 20 and a 21 is not very much, frankly. The difference between a 22 and a 25 is not very much. But as you get above 25, the amount of effort and work to get your score from a 25 to 26 is pretty significant. Right. The amount of work to get from a 26 to a 27, even more significant. The amount of work necessary to get from a 29 to a 30 is, for many students, very hard to get over, that 29 to 30 bump.
Right.
And then once you're over 30, getting your scores up from a 30 to a 31, up to a 32, up to a 33, it's really, really difficult to make those last notches. So that's the background. Right. So your daughter has a 35 and she's wondering whether it's worth it to go for a 36 and that jump from 35 to 36, big jump.
Yeah.
And she got that 35, taking the test a whole 12 months early.
Right, right, she did, yeah.
So that's a phenomenally good score for everyone that's listening. It's a phenomenally good score. And she did it at a very early age or early point in her school career. Is it worth it to try again? So my answer is absolutely it's worth it to try again because it can't possibly hurt her.
Right.
can't possibly hurt her. She's got a 35 in her sophomore year. No admissions officer is going to miss that.
Right.
That 35 in her sophomore year.
Do they see when you've taken it really, or?
They will see. So they're going to see everything. They see when she took it. They see each of the individual scores. So they'll see science score, math score, English score, reading score, writing score. And so they'll definitely see it. Most schools, in addition, most schools super score, which means they take the highest score from each section.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take it twice, they take the highest score of the two.
Right.
They take the highest science score of the two, the highest. So, so most schools do that. Not all do. University of California doesn't, for example.
Okay.
So it can't. So in addition, I don't know if you were here with us at the top of the hour. We were talking about whether or not good scores help. So
Right. I did take that. Yeah, I was there for that one.
So a good score always helps, and she's got a phenomenal score, so that's always good.
Right.
So here's what. So and this is what I tell my students when we get to the how to do the application part of the process. I tell them the most important thing for you to do is think about what this looks like to the admissions officer. It's more important than thinking about what it is you want to say. Is what is it they're looking for? Not so that you can lie, but so that you can tell them the information they're looking for, right? They want to know, admissions officer is looking for information that will reassure them that you are going to be a successful student at their school, right?
Right.
So you got to think about it that way. If that's what they're looking for, they don't need to know your shoe size. They don't need to know your girlfriend's name. They don't need to know, all right? They need to know things that will help them see that, right?
Right.
So from an admissions officer's perspective, what does this look like? You've got a student who's got an extraordinary score at a very early age, and that already is going to help them. Now, what does it look like if that student now turns around and studies and tries hard to get a better score?
Right.
What does that look like? It looks like a student who's super motivated to me, right?
Yeah. Right.
And it looks like a student who's super motivated, who is able to overcome circumstances. Now add this student has doing all of this in the midst of coronavirus when she knows the score might not matter, right?
Right.
What does that say about the student?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So all of that I just said doesn't even count whether the score is good or not.
Right. It's just to do something else about the student. Right.
So she takes it and she doesn't do better.
Right.
What does that say?
Right.
She takes it and she gets a 30 this time. What does that say? It says
actually the thing is, in September they were supposed to start the individual. Are they still doing that? I don't even know. I mean, the thought was to just take the science section and not the whole thing.
I haven't seen a confirmation that they're going to do this. So ACT and SAT too, to some extent, they have been discussing offering the sections of the test independently instead of having to take the whole test again. Well, so here's the deal. If they do end up offering that, then that's definitely what she should do, right?
Right.
She should just take the one she's trying to achieve a higher score.
Yeah.
If that's not available, and I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see that they don't roll out all the cool things they were gonna, because they got all this other stuff to do.
Yeah.
So let's think out loud about what happens if she studies and then takes a test upcoming this summer.
Right.
So there are a couple things that she could do. I've had a student before really want to raise this one score.
Right.
And then they only study that one thing.
Right.
And then they go in and they bomb the other parts of the test because all they studied was science.
Yeah. So either way, we could sort of do that, but no, that's probably not a great idea.
So it's not a great idea to just really go in unprepared for the other sections, right? Because then it's obvious that that's what you did, and it sort of calls into question the good score a little, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean she's got to go in and get another 35 on the test in order for it to look good, right? But you don't want to go in and you don't want to do that. You don't want to go bomb the rest of the section. So she's got to kind of do her due diligence to get those other scores. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But she, I mean, I would encourage her. I would encourage her to study and go take it again because
the aspect of her one, and she does want to do that, and we were like, oh my gosh, we don't know, like you said, the option. I mean, she could do worse for whatever reason. It's a day and a test, so who knows.
and this year and maybe next year are going to be exceptions in the sense that not doing well can't really hurt you very much because everybody understands. So. Right. Under the current circumstances, if whatever, and that's why I say earlier today when I said it, that's why I said, if you have the ability to study and do well, you should do it. Because there's so many of us can't do what we normally do. There's the circumstances are such that we can't do well. That's the whole point, right? That you could be a great student, but right now it's not possible for you to do well. And so I keep disclaiming that because it's important to remember. Right. If you can't, you can't. It's okay. Right. But if you can do well, and I think I said this last week I said this and I listened to the recording and I thought, I need to repeat that was, and out it went. The thought is gone. I hate it.
It's been a long hour for you.
It has. Oh, now I remember. I knew if I paused a second, I'd remember. So what I wanted to repeat was, look, whatever it is you have available to you to excel at right now,
right?
Excel at that thing. Right. And that was what I said something like that. And I thought that's such an important concept. Look, right. if what your job is right now is babysitting your little brother so mom and dad can work in the dining room, that's your job. Go excel at that.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, it's totally going to change the whole, what we knew best before to what, it's going to be now. It's kind of, the goalposts have changed a lot. So, but it's interesting.
They have changed, right? And the reason I say excel at whatever it is that's in front of you is that I sound so corny, right? As a coach, but it builds character to do a good job at the thing you're doing. And if you can't do a good job at the SAT right now, okay, you've got it. We've all got a good excuse for not doing well at the SAT right now, but an admissions officer, a good academic coach, any good educator is going to be pushing you to excel at the thing you're doing because the admissions officer will see that, right? We can say, okay, there's an essay to write there. I spent coronavirus learning about my little brother, or it was important to me to do a good job at that. And that's the character that we all want to develop. And so there's no time like the present.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you. That was helpful. And I sort of, was hoping that you would say something like that because you hear different views and you're like, no, sit with that. But I think that does point to an extra character trait that would point to her dedication, I would think, if she were to try.
To try on the test, yeah. To try. Because another way to look at excel at whatever you're doing right now is to be looking for things you can excel at. Right? Like a month ago, I had a client. I haven't mentioned this in a while, but a month ago, right after this started, I had a phone call with a client and I said, how are you doing? And he said he was bored.
That's terrible. I don't tolerate that at home.
That was all I could do. Like, how dare you be bored when people are dying and losing their jobs? Like, go find. But we know better. We know better. We know that's not what they mean, right? But my response was, okay, then we need to find something for you to apply yourself to, right? Go find something.
There has to be something. Absolutely.
Right, and so if she has the ability to study for that test, and that's one of the things that she can apply herself to, then that's a great thing to apply yourself to, right? That's the, okay.
I'm hoping that if they do roll out the individual sections, that it might be great.
It would be great.
That would be great. That way she only does that and doesn't have to. reveal her other scores. But thank you. Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you so much, Erica.
Another, the fact of the current situation might mean that they do roll out the single subject tests because it'll make it easier for
Yeah,
students to get what they need out of
right.
the
I'm wondering
test.
if they're going to do things online, though. Do you think the ACT, did they say they were going to do it online?
Um, I don't know, I normally I check all the headlines in the mornings. I didn't this morning, but I don't know that they've made a final announcement, but I can tell you 100% sure they have plans, and they are testing and rolling out ways to do online tests. So I would expect to see that as an option.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, you guys have stuck in with us. So we're at 11:30 today, but good questions. I can almost hate to. I will edit this before I post it so it's not
Yes.
burdensomely long. But
Thank you. And is there a way, I missed your last session and I heard about the next Saturday one. So, I'm just making sure that I'm available for that time slot, and my daughter is, because she's got AP
okay.
this week. But is there a recording of the past sessions at all that you have? And where would I find that?
So there are recordings. I am slowly posting the older episodes on the public YouTube channel. So you can go to YouTube and search for Rockstar Academics College Bound Coaching. So you'll see our logo. There's another channel that has our name, but it's obviously not me. So there's the first return should be us, Rockstar Academics, and the older episodes are on the YouTube channel. I'm about 3 weeks behind on getting the replays on the YouTube channel on purpose, so that you guys have a chance to log in and watch them privately first. So you'll get a login afterwards to the private replay channel, and you can watch the replays from the last 2 weeks there, and then they slowly will get moved to the YouTube channel. So yeah, you'll be able to get those. And I will also send, go ahead.
No, I said I also have a ninth grader, so that's another kind of, in the time of Corona, what changes for them too. I mean, I know the juniors got half her stuff done, but the ninth grader might have to use a completely different way to do these things. So,
Well, I think we will start to see what the world looks like by the time she has to make her decision. So that's good. That's good.
Well, thank you so much, Erica. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Mia and Manuela, for contributing. Should I do the web address roll one more time? It's Rockstar Academics, rockstarstrategysessions.com if you want to have a one-on-one chat with me. And School News Saturdays is where the news is. And you can also register. So there's a registration form there for people to register for next week. If you have friends who you want to invite for next week.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's schoolnewssaturday.com. More stuff about us in general is rockstaracademics.com, and all of our programs are there. And as far as next Saturday goes, I will be sending an email. So you'll get the registration information in your email for that. And then it eventually will make it to all the websites.
Thank you.
This makes me crazy, this business.
Oh my God. That's why I don't even have my video on. My hair is all over the place. Thank you.
It's all good. Happy Saturday, you guys. Go for a walk, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.